Picture this. A child dives beneath the waves without goggles or a mask. At 20 feet below the surface, they open their eyes wide and scan the ocean floor with perfect clarity, spotting shells, fish, and hidden treasures that you or I would see only as a blurry haze. This isn't a superpower. This isn't science fiction. This is simply childhood for the Moken people. While most of us spend our lives on solid ground, returning to the ocean only for vacation, there exists a community of people for whom the sea isn't just a destination, it's home. They sleep on the waves, they're born on boats, and for 8 months of every year, many of them never touch land at all. These are the Moken, the sea nomads of the Andaman Sea. And their story will challenge everything you think you know about what it means to be human. Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will leave you speechless. In the crystal-clear waters between Thailand and Myanmar lies a scattered archipelago of over 800 islands. This is the Andaman Sea, a region of breathtaking beauty and treacherous storms. And for at least 4,000 years, possibly much longer, this has been home to one of the world's last true nomadic peoples. The Moken, sometimes called sea gypsies by outsiders, number fewer than 3,000 individuals today. They speak an Austronesian language found nowhere else on Earth. They live in hand-built wooden boats called kabang kahbahang, and they possess knowledge of the ocean that would take modern marine biologists decades to acquire. But the Moken are far more than a curiosity. They represent a fundamentally different way of relating to our planet, one where the boundary between human and nature dissolves, where ownership means nothing, and where the ocean is not something to conquer, but something to listen to. This is their story. A story of extraordinary adaptation, ancient wisdom, and a way of life that's disappearing before our eyes. This is the story of the people who live on water. The Moken call themselves Moken, which in their language simply means people, or those who dive for a living. But their origins stretch back into the mists of prehistory. Genetic and linguistic evidence suggests they've inhabited the Andaman Sea region for at least 4 millennia, possibly migrating from southern China thousands of years ago. They spread throughout the Mergui archipelago off Myanmar's coast, the Surin Islands of Thailand, and countless smaller islands and coral reefs in between. For most of history, they had little contact with land-based societies. They traded occasionally, exchanging sea products like pearls and sea cucumbers for rice, metal tools, and cloth, but they remained largely independent. When European colonizers arrived in Southeast Asia, they found the Moken baffling. How could people survive without owning land, without accumulating possessions, without permanent shelter? Western observers often dismissed them as primitive, failing to recognize the sophisticated knowledge system that had allowed the Moken to thrive for thousands of years. The Moken had no written language, no formal government, no temples or monuments, but they possessed something far more valuable, an intimate understanding of the sea that was encoded in stories, songs, and skills passed from parent to child across countless generations. Unlike the empires rising and falling around them, the Moken endured, not through conquest or expansion, but through a profound harmony with their environment. They took only what they needed, they moved with the seasons, and they survived where others would perish. To understand the Moken, you must understand the kabang. These aren't just boats, they're floating homes, temples, and the very center of Moken existence. Each kabang is built by hand using techniques unchanged for centuries. Made from hardwood planks, held together without a single metal nail, these vessels are typically 20 to 30 feet long. The hull is deep and curved, designed to ride out the fierce storms that sweep across the Andaman Sea. There's a covered section in the middle where families sleep, cook, and shelter from the rain. Imagine your entire life contained in a space smaller than most people's bedrooms. A family of 6 might share this space. Parents, children, sometimes grandparents. Cooking is done over a small clay hearth, carefully positioned to avoid setting the wooden boat ablaze. Clothes and tools hang from the curved bamboo roof. At night, the gentle rocking of the waves becomes a lullaby. The Moken don't sleep in beds as we know them. They sleep sitting up, or hunched over, Their bodies adapted to the confined space. Children learn to crawl on a boat before they learn to walk on land. They grow up with webbed toes spread wide for balance, their inner ears calibrated to constant motion. There's no electricity, no refrigeration, no running water. Fresh water is collected in containers when it rains, or gathered from streams on islands during time-lapse of day-to-day life, brief stops. Food is caught daily. Fish, shells, sea cucumbers, crabs, and consumed fresh. Nothing is wasted. Fish bones become fish hooks. Empty shells become tools and decorations. But here's what's truly remarkable. The Moken spend up to 8 months per year living exclusively on these boats, traveling between islands and reefs following seasonal patterns. During monsoon season, from April to October, they sail north. During the dry season, they drift south. They know every reef, every current, every island in their vast maritime territory. Multiple families often anchor their kabang together, creating floating villages. Children swim between boats visiting friends. Adults share catches and stories. There's no concept of private property beyond personal tools and clothes. If one family catches more fish than they need, they share. If a boat is damaged, everyone helps repair it. This is life lived in rhythm with the ocean, not fighting against it, but flowing with it like the tides themselves. Now we come to something that sounds like science fiction, but is absolutely, scientifically verified fact. Moken children can see underwater with near-perfect clarity, without goggles, without masks, without any equipment whatsoever. Studies conducted by Swedish researcher Anna Gislen revealed something extraordinary. When diving underwater, the human eye normally can't focus properly. Light refracts differently in water than in air, leaving everything blurry. But Moken children have learned to consciously control the shape of their eye's lens and the size of their pupils, something most humans can't do. The result? They can see with twice the clarity of European children underwater. At depths where you or I would be squinting helplessly at blurred shapes, Moken children spot tiny shells, navigate through coral formations, and track fast-moving fish. This isn't a genetic mutation. It's not passed down through DNA. It's a learned skill, developed through thousands of hours in the water from infancy. Western children tested after intensive training showed they could develop similar abilities, proof that this represents the outer edge of human adaptability, not a unique Moken trait. But the underwater vision is just the beginning. Moken divers by adulthood can hold their breath for several minutes while free diving to depths of 60 to 70 feet. They do this repeatedly, all day long, without modern diving equipment. Their bodies have adapted to process oxygen more efficiently, their blood chemistry optimized for repeated breath holding. They can estimate depth by pressure alone. They navigate complex coral systems in low visibility. They identify fish species from their silhouettes. They know which shells are worth collecting and which to leave behind, all while working in an environment that would leave most people panicked and disoriented. This is human evolution in action, not over millions of years, but within a single childhood. It reveals something profound. We are far more adaptable than we realize. The human body, given the right conditions, can develop capabilities that seem superhuman. The Moken children who swim through underwater caves with their eyes wide open aren't special. They're simply a reminder of what we're all capable of when necessity and culture combine. But physical abilities are only part of the Moken mastery of the sea. Their true superpower is knowledge, an encyclopedic understanding of marine ecosystems that puts most marine biology textbooks to shame. The Moken don't just fish randomly. They know which fish gather where, during which phase of the moon, at what depth, during which season. They know that certain fish feed on specific coral formations. They know which reefs will be rich during particular tides. This knowledge is so precise that they rarely return from a diving expedition empty-handed. Their fishing techniques are a masterclass in efficiency. Using hand-carved wooden spears with metal tips, they can strike a moving fish from 10 feet away while underwater. They understand fish behavior intimately, knowing exactly when to strike, when to wait, how to approach without startling their prey. They build intricate fish traps from bamboo and vines, positioned according to tidal patterns and fish migration routes. They know dozens of techniques for different species, some caught at night, some at dawn, some during storms when the fish behave differently. Navigation is perhaps their most impressive skill. The Moken traverse hundreds of miles of open ocean without GPS, without compasses, without charts. They navigate by stars, yes, but also by wave patterns. They can tell direction from the subtle differences in how swells move. They read clouds, winds, and the flight patterns of seabirds. They predict weather with accuracy that astonishes meteorologists. They know that certain cloud formations mean storms in 3 days. They know that when the seabirds behave erratically, a typhoon is coming. They know which winds are safe and which are deadly. This knowledge isn't superstition. It's empirical data accumulated over thousands of years. Their understanding extends to food preparation and preservation. They know which fish must be eaten immediately and which can last longer. They know medicinal plants on various islands, which leaves treat stomach ailments, which bark reduces fever, which roots can be crushed for antiseptic. They're self-sufficient in ways modern people can barely comprehend. They repair their boats using resin from specific trees. They weave rope from palm fibers. They forge new spear tips from scrap metal. They solve every problem with materials at hand, because in the middle of the ocean, there's no hardware store, no backup plan. This is mastery born from necessity. Every piece of knowledge is survival knowledge. Every skill has been tested by the unforgiving sea. And it works. The Moken have survived and thrived in an environment where carelessness means death. Beyond their physical skills lies something harder to measure, but equally extraordinary. A worldview fundamentally different from modern society. The Moken language reflects their unique perspective. It contains no words for want or need in the acquisitive sense familiar to us. There's no word for worry or hurry. The concept of property as we understand it barely exists. In the traditional Moken worldview, you can use something, but you don't own it. This isn't naive idealism, it's practical adaptation. When you live on a boat, accumulation is impossible. Everything you own must be carried. The wisest strategy is to take only what you need, share abundantly, and trust that others will do the same. A Moken who catches 10 fish but can only eat 2 will always share the rest, knowing that tomorrow might bring a different fortune. Spiritually, the Moken practice a form of animism. They believe the ocean and its creatures possess spirits that must be respected. Before diving, some Moken perform small rituals asking permission from the sea. They never take more than necessary, believing that greed angers the ocean spirits and brings storms. They have no temples, no priests, no written scriptures. Their religious practices are woven into daily life. Stories told at night, songs sung while sailing, taboos observed about certain fish or locations. These stories serve multiple purposes: entertainment, moral instruction, and the transmission of crucial survival knowledge. For the Moken, the ocean isn't out there. It's home in the most profound sense. They don't say they're going to sea because they're always already there. The distinction between human space and natural space, so fundamental to modern thinking, simply doesn't exist for them. Anthropologists who've studied the Moken note their striking peacefulness. Conflicts are resolved through discussion and mediation. Violence is extremely rare. There's little theft because there's little private property to steal. Competition exists, but it's tempered by the knowledge that survival depends on cooperation. This culture has produced a people remarkably free from many modern anxieties. Depression and suicide, epidemic in developed nations, are virtually unknown among traditional Moken communities. They live in the present because the ocean demands it. Yesterday's catch doesn't feed you today, and tomorrow's weather can't be controlled. December 26, 2004. A massive earthquake beneath the Indian Ocean triggered one of the deadliest tsunamis in recorded history. Waves up to 100 feet high slammed into coastlines around the Indian Ocean. Nearly 230,000 people died in 14 countries. Entire communities were wiped off the map. The Andaman Sea, the Moken homeland, took a direct hit. Tourist beaches in Thailand and Myanmar were devastated. Thousands died, including many who never saw it coming. But among the Moken, deaths were astonishingly rare. This wasn't luck. This was knowledge. The Moken have a legend passed down through countless generations. They call it Laboon, the wave that eats people. The legend describes signs that precede Laboon, the ocean receding far from shore, exposing reefs normally underwater, animals behaving strangely, a terrible sound coming from the sea. On the morning of December 26th, Moken elders on the Surin Islands saw the ocean pull back. They heard the ancestral stories echoing in their minds. And they acted. They woke their communities. They moved everyone to high ground. They secured their boats and headed for the hills, shouting warnings to anyone who would listen. Some Thai and Burmese locals familiar with Moken wisdom followed them. Minutes later, the tsunami struck. While tourists on beaches stood confused, taking photographs of the exposed ocean floor, the Moken were already running. While modern tsunami warning systems failed or came too late, ancient knowledge transmitted orally through hundreds of generations saved lives. In Moken villages, the death toll was close to zero. In some communities, not a single life was lost. Contrast this with nearby areas where entire villages disappeared. One Moken elder later told researchers, "We knew the sea was going to be angry. Our ancestors told us that when the ocean pulls back like that, you must run to the high ground. The wave that follows eats everything." Scientists later confirmed what the Moken already knew. Unusual ocean behavior, exposed reefs, and certain animal reactions are indeed warning signs of tsunamis. The Moken hadn't preserved a superstition. They'd preserved a precise observational science, tested and refined over thousands of years. This moment marked a turning point in how the world viewed the Moken. No longer could they be dismissed as primitive. Their knowledge had been validated in the most dramatic way possible. Traditional ecological knowledge, the kind stored in stories and oral traditions, proved as valuable as any modern technology. But this recognition came too late for many Moken, whose way of life was already in steep decline. The tsunami didn't destroy the Moken, but the modern world was doing what the waves could not. Today, the Moken face an existential crisis that has nothing to do with tsunamis and everything to do with governments, borders, and the modern concept of citizenship. Myanmar and Thailand, the two nations whose waters the Moken have traversed for millennia, both want them to settle on land. To governments, nomadic peoples are problematic. They cross borders without documentation. They don't pay taxes. They don't fit into bureaucratic systems designed for settled populations. Increasingly, Moken are pressured or forced to live in permanent settlements on shore. These settlements often lack adequate resources, and the Moken struggle to adapt to landlocked life. Imagine being told you must leave the place your ancestors have lived for 4,000 years. Imagine being forced to abandon the skills that define your identity. Most Moken lack citizenship in any country. They don't have birth certificates, identification papers, or official nationality. This makes them stateless, unable to access healthcare, education, or legal protection. Children born on boats in international waters belong nowhere according to modern law. Meanwhile, their traditional fishing grounds have been transformed into marine national parks and tourist zones. Areas where they've fished for generations are now off-limits. They're arrested for poaching in waters their ancestors navigated before these countries existed. The irony is crushing. The people who've sustained these marine ecosystems for thousands of years are now prohibited from using them. Commercial fishing fleets, often operating illegally, have decimated fish stocks. Dynamite fishing and bottom trawling destroy coral reefs. Pollution from tourism and development contaminates waters. The Moken, who never overfished, who always maintained balance, now find their ocean emptied by others' greed. For young Moken, the pull of modern life is strong. Television shows a world of material abundance. Smartphones promise connection and entertainment. Education, when available, teaches skills for land-based jobs, not maritime survival. Many young people feel caught between two worlds, fully belonging to neither. The Moken language is in danger. Children increasingly speak Thai or Burmese instead. Traditional boat-building knowledge is disappearing. Why learn to build a kabang when you're expected to live on land? Younger Moken may be able to dive and fish, but they don't possess the encyclopedic ocean knowledge of their grandparents. It's easy to romanticize the Moken lifestyle from a distance, but it's also undeniably hard. Infant mortality was high. Medical care was non-existent. Life expectancy was shorter. Modern medicine, education, and economic opportunity offer real benefits. The question isn't whether change should happen. It's whether the Moken can retain their culture and identity while navigating modernity. But this isn't a story of helpless victims. The Moken are making choices, negotiating with governments, finding hybrid solutions. Some families now live on land during part of the year and return to their boats during traditional sailing season. Some have embraced tourism, offering cultural experiences while maintaining their traditions. The future of the Moken will be shaped by the Moken themselves. Today, perhaps 2,000 to 3,000 Moken remain, scattered across the Andaman Sea. The exact number is difficult to determine. How do you count people who refuse to be counted, who move with the seasons, who exist outside official records? Their circumstances vary dramatically. Some communities maintain almost entirely traditional lifestyles, still spending most of the year on their kabang. Others have settled permanently on land, their boats gathering dust on beaches. Most exist somewhere between these extremes. Organizations are working to support Moken rights and cultural preservation. Some NGOs provide legal assistance to help Moken obtain citizenship. Others document traditional knowledge before it's lost. Environmental groups partner with Moken to protect marine ecosystems, recognizing their value as environmental stewards. Perhaps most importantly, some Moken themselves are becoming advocates and educators. They're teaching their children traditional skills while also ensuring they're literate and educated in mainstream systems. They're documenting their language, recording their songs, writing down stories that have only been told orally. Young Moken activists are using social media to share their culture with the world. Some have become tour guides, using tourism income to support their communities while educating visitors about Moken traditions. They're proving that preserving culture doesn't mean rejecting modernity. It means finding ways to carry ancestral wisdom into a changing world. The cynical view is that the Moken are doomed, that globalization and governmental pressure will erase their culture within a generation. And it's true that the Moken of 2050 will likely live very differently than the Moken of 1950. But cultures don't simply die or survive unchanged, they adapt. The Moken have survived for 4,000 years through countless changes. They've weathered storms, tsunamis, pirates, colonization, and wars. They've proven remarkably resilient. Perhaps they'll find a way to navigate modernity too. The question facing the Moken, and facing all of us, is this: what do we preserve, and what do we allow to change? How do we honor the past while embracing the future? These aren't questions with easy answers. The Moken Sea Nomads remind us that there are many ways to be human, not just one right way, not just the modern, industrialized, land-based way. They've proven that humans can adapt to extraordinary environments, that we can develop abilities that seem superhuman, that we can live sustainably in places that would challenge even the most advanced technology. They've shown that happiness doesn't require possessions, that security doesn't require ownership, that home isn't a place, it's a way of being. In an age where we're more connected than ever but lonelier than ever, where we own more but feel less secure, where we've conquered nature but lost our connection to it, the Moken offer an alternative vision. Not a blueprint, their lifestyle can't and shouldn't be simply copied, but a reminder that different arrangements are possible. The Moken face an uncertain future. Their way of life is under threat from forces beyond their control, but they also face this future with the same adaptability that sustained them for millennia. They're not museum pieces. They're not relics of the past. They're fully modern people making modern choices about how to preserve what matters while adapting to what must change. Whether the Moken will still be sailing the Andaman Sea a century from now, we cannot say. But their story, the story of the people who live on water, will remain. It will remind us of what humans are capable of. It will challenge our assumptions about progress and civilization. It will ask us to consider what we've gained through modernity and what we've lost. Perhaps the greatest lesson of the Moken is this: there's no one right way to live. There's only the way that connects you to something larger than yourself. Whether that's the ocean, the land, the sky, or simply the community of other humans navigating this strange and beautiful world together. The Moken have navigated by the stars for 4,000 years. Perhaps they can teach us something about finding our own way forward. If this story moved you, consider subscribing to this channel. We explore the world's most fascinating cultures, forgotten histories, and the incredible diversity of human experience. Hit that like button if you found this documentary worthwhile, and share it with someone who needs to see a different way of living. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep wondering about the extraordinary ways humans have learned to call this planet home.